Page 2 in my effort to kill this channel. I'm like 8 subscribers short of 5,000. So I'm either going to see if this drops it or pushes me just over it. Now here's the thing. I have a lot of my audiences based off of my agricultural stuff that I've posted, and it's a lot of people in my local area, and it happens to be a rural conservative area, and I know my leniency is tend to be a little bit to the left. Basically, anything left of far right is considered kind of a lefty thing instead of just the middle, or at least that's how I perceive it. So this might cost me a few subscribers, and that to me means nothing because I still get ad revenue off of the videos that people watch anyway. So, whatever. This is more for my own enjoyment and fulfillment. Because, like I said, I've been having political conversations, but I don't ever document them. I thought this would be fun. Page 2. Now the economy. We're talking attitudes here, not the FTSE index, which is good because I couldn't tell you about the FTSE index. Great. So people are ultimately divided more by class than nationality. That's maybe agree, but then again, like when you talk about the 1%, that contextually that can mean something different. Within the United States, the 1% are people with mega billions. Globally, 1% is people who make like $30,000 or more per year. At least that's what I've heard. So yes and no. Like, I feel like that question changes more. Like, if it was within the context, this is dumb. Like, there's definitely a class divide within the United States. Globally, yeah, there's a class. This is, I don't like this. That's a tough one. You can, in the comments, put a time code in your opinion if you want to sway me one way or another. So, controlling the inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I'm going to disagree. That's tricky, even though rapid inflation, got a message. Inflation is definitely a problem. You have rapid inflation. Products, like they'll become rapidly inflated in price, or your money doesn't have value and you can't buy stuff. You can think of the Weimar Republic before World War II, or Weimar Republic in Germany before World War II. There's an issue with inflation. There's certainly an issue with inflation in Venezuela, and that's causing issues. So that's a problem. But at the same time, I think of a quote, I'm forgetting, and I can't think of who it is at the top of my head, but it's during the FDR administration where they're talking about creating the New Deal or the CCC, which was an effort to employ a bunch of people with the government. Now, the guy says people don't need food in the long term. They need food in the short term. And in order to get that food, they need to be employed. So the logic was, there might be certain strategies done at the moment that would make things economically better in the long term, but that doesn't mean anything if people aren't eating today. They need food today. So that's why I'm going to lean towards employment, to favor the side of employment versus inflation. I'm going to make sure I read that correct. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Again, someone could have a 1-hour debate about this easily and go back and forth, but that's just my initial impulse. We're going off of bias. I'm trying to learn my natural bias. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. I agree. Some people talk about free markets or libertarianism having some built-in accountability. I don't see that happening, though. Like, in theory, it sounds nice, but it doesn't happen. I think can think of more than one example where whether it's a large company or a small company, they'll take shortcuts at the cost of the environment. I can think of one example where a guy had a hydraulic lift for a car or machines that was always leaking hydraulic fluid. And I guess it had been going for like years. Every month he'd lose so many gallons, and this went on for years because he never wanted to fix this hydraulic seal. Eventually, the EPA noticed a slick on a nearby lake or some body of water. There's all that hydraulic oil had built up and contaminated the area. So the guy had no interest in taking care of the environment. Hence, regulations had to come into effect that he wasn't following, but you have an enforcement agency to enforce them. So I'm going to strongly agree. From each according to his ability, each according to his need is fundamentally a good idea. Oh, that's tricky. Like, does it change anything if you take out the word fundamentally? Is a good idea? Is fundamentally a good idea? I guess fundamentally I agree. And I think the word makes it, like, give it some wiggle room as far as the interpretation. Yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. The freer the market, the freer the people. Not necessarily. I'm going to soft disagree. An wildly free market can lead to monopolies, and you do not have freedom in a monopoly. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now bottled, branded as consumer product. I'll strongly agree. That seems a little absurd. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I'm going to soft disagree because this is my personal vested interest. I make a living off some farm ground. It's nice to own that farm ground, or at least it's not mine. It's family farm ground that I farm. So, yeah, now someone might be, we're not going to go into that. I'll just disagree. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money. Yeah, I strongly agree. Yeah, I see money as sort of a blood flow that carries oxygen through the whole system. Now, when money gets concentrated in one area, or people can acquire more of that money or acquire more of that wealth just to concentrate it, and they don't actually contribute anything to the function of the system, that's bad. Like I said, I use the analogy of blood. Blood's supposed to keep flowing. It's supposed to deliver oxygen to all the organs and keep you healthy. Now, if you create a clot somewhere, that's bad for the body. I think with money, if you create a clot somewhere, it's bad for the economic system. So that's why I strongly agree. And if you like that analogy, you can let me know. Put a time code on it. If you don't, you can tell me why. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Yeah, soft agree. Just no understanding why. Just I soft agree. The only social responsibility of a company should deliver profit to shareholders. Social responsibility. The only responsibility or the only social responsibility. Does that change the question? Deliver profit to shareholders. Okay, so if it's the only responsibility, like if it said only responsibility is to deliver a profit, I would say soft agree. Now they're saying a social responsibility is profit to shareholders. I'm going to disagree because if there's a social responsibility, I assume that infers some sort of stakeholder and not just stockholder. The difference being a stakeholder is anyone affected by the actions of that company. Stockholder is someone that just has stock in the company. So with the word social in the question, I feel like it's implying any stakeholder. So that's why I'm answering disagree. Soft disagree. The rich are too highly taxed. I'm going to strongly disagree. They've gotten tax breaks. And the rich have gotten richer. So I don't think they're hurting. I think they're doing okay. The pandemic has definitely illustrated that, in my opinion. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of Medicare. You might think I'm leaning to disagree, but I'm going to actually agree with this one. And I'll tell you why. I have a preference or leniency to a single-payer plus system where everyone has access to basic fundamental health care. The advantage would be there'd be more preventative medicine, which means there's less heart disease, less diabetes, less major surgeries that have like high six-figure costs to them. Preventative medicine would actually save you money in the long term. Now, why do I think some people should have access to better health care? This is like in a single payer plus, this is where plus would be the existence of private health insurance companies. Single payer gives everyone basic access to health insurance or health care, not health insurance. Private health insurance companies could exist to give you a supplemental medical care. Like if there's doctors that want to operate in a private network or a separate network. Or maybe, I think this happens in Australia, you could use your supplemental insurance to travel abroad to get care or operations done at a different facility or a different hospital under a different doctor. Like it might, if you have the money to get a little bit better access to healthcare, then why not? I don't have a problem with that. But I do believe people should have access to the most basic healthcare. So I agree with this one. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Yes, strongly agree. You might be like, oh, well, that sounds harsh. Cigarette companies spent millions of dollars and decades telling people cigarettes were healthy. And the burden fell on the society to address that issue. People are dying of lung cancer. Breadwinners of households are dying or being disabled by this because someone was telling them cigarettes were safe. So that is where the profits went to a private company and the social consequence went to the society. I have a problem with that. So I strongly agree. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Yes. I feel like I might have covered something like that already. So, yes. All right, that is page test 2. Moving on.